What if I told you that right here, right in this very moment, you are closer to a miracle than you have ever been before? What if the answer to your deepest prayer, the healing you've been seeking, the breakthrough you've been waiting for, is just one sincere conversation away with the most powerful intercessor in heaven? My dear friend, you clicked on this video for a reason. Perhaps you're carrying a burden that feels too heavy. Maybe you're facing a situation that seems impossible. Or perhaps something deep in your heart whispered that today would be different. That whisper was not coincidence. It was grace calling you to this sacred encounter. Before we dive into this powerful prayer time together, I want you to do something for me. Hit that like button right there below this video, share this with someone who needs a miracle today, and make sure you subscribe to this channel because what we're about to experience together is going to transform how you approach prayer forever. The Mother of Perpetual Help has been working miracles for over 500 years, but here's what most people don't understand. She's not just a beautiful icon hanging on a wall. She's a living, breathing avenue of grace that connects your heart directly to the heart of Jesus Christ. And today we're going to discover why thousands of people around the world turn to her when they need heaven to move on their behalf. You see, there's something extraordinary about this particular devotion that sets it apart from every other prayer you've ever prayed. It's not just about asking for help. It's about creating a supernatural partnership between your faith and the most powerful woman who ever lived. The same woman who told the servants at the wedding in Cana, "Do whatever he tells you," is the same woman who wants to tell you today, "Bring me your impossible situation." But wait, before you think this is just another prayer video, let me tell you about Maria Santos from the Philippines. 3 months ago, Maria was told her daughter had less than 2 weeks to live. The doctors had given up. The family had started making funeral arrangements, but Maria had heard about the Mother of Perpetual Help, and she decided to try one more thing. What happened next changed everything, not just for Maria's family, but for the hundreds of people who witnessed what can only be described as a divine intervention. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how Maria accessed the same power that's available to you right at this moment. The Mother of Perpetual Help isn't just about healing physical ailments. She's about healing broken relationships, opening doors that have been closed for years, providing for families in desperate need, and bringing peace to hearts that have been shattered by life's storms. She's called the Mother of Perpetual Help because her help never stops, never runs out, and never fails to reach those who call upon her with sincere hearts. Here's something that might surprise you. The original icon of our Mother of Perpetual Help was actually lost for over 300 years. It disappeared during political upheaval in Rome, and no one knew where it was. For 3 centuries, this powerful image was hidden away, unknown and unvenerated. But here's the incredible part. The Blessed Virgin Mary herself appeared to a young boy and told him exactly where to find it. Think about that for a moment. Heaven itself intervened to make sure this particular devotion would be restored to the world. Why? Because Mary knew that in these times, your times, our times, people would need this special channel of grace more than ever before. The boy's name was Michael, and he was just 6 years old when Our Lady appeared to him in a dream. She told him, "Go to the Church of St. Matthew and tell them where to find my icon." The priests were skeptical at first. After all, this was just a child. But when they followed his directions, they found the icon exactly where the little boy said it would be, preserved perfectly after 3 centuries of hiding. That restoration happened in 1866, and from that moment forward, the miracles began to flow like a river. But here's what I find fascinating. The icon wasn't just randomly discovered. It was revealed at the exact moment in history when the world was entering a period of unprecedented change and challenge, almost as if heaven was preparing for what was coming. Let me share something with you that most people never consider. There's actually a profound connection between faith and what scientists call quantum entanglement. the idea that particles can be mysteriously connected across vast distances, affecting each other instantaneously. When you pray to the Mother of Perpetual Help, you're not just sending words into empty space, you're creating a real, measurable connection between your heart and the supernatural realm. Neuroscientists have discovered that focused prayer actually changes the structure of your brain, opening pathways for reception of what they can only describe as information from beyond normal consciousness. Dr. Andrew Newberg at the University of Pennsylvania has spent decades studying the brains of people during deep prayer. His research shows that when someone enters what he calls transcendent prayer, their brain activity shifts dramatically. The areas associated with self-awareness quiet down, while the regions connected to perception and reception become hyperactive. But here's the remarkable part. The changes don't just happen during prayer. They create permanent alterations in the brain that make the person more sensitive to what Dr. Newberg calls transcendent experiences. In other words, the more you pray, the more capable you become of receiving supernatural intervention in your life. This isn't just religious theory. This is documented science, and it explains why people who maintain consistent devotion to the Mother of Perpetual Help often report that their entire lives begin to change, not just the specific situations they pray about. Consider the case of James Rodriguez from Mexico City. James was a successful businessman who had never been particularly religious, but when his wife was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer that had no known cure, a friend convinced him to attend a novena to our Mother of Perpetual Help. James went reluctantly, skeptically. He didn't expect anything to happen, but on the third night of the novena, something shifted. He later described it as feeling like his heart was tuned to a different frequency. The doubt that had filled his mind for years suddenly lifted, replaced by what he could only call supernatural peace. His wife's healing didn't happen overnight, but something else did happen. James began to notice coincidences that seemed too perfectly timed to be random. A business opportunity that saved his company from financial ruin. A chance meeting with a specialist who was developing an experimental treatment for his wife's exact condition. A series of small miracles that built upon each other until the impossible became inevitable. Today, James and his wife run a foundation that helps other families facing similar challenges. But James will tell you that the real miracle wasn't just his wife's healing. It was the complete transformation of his understanding of how heaven intersects with earth. This brings us to a crucial point that many people miss about devotion to the Mother of Perpetual Help. It's not magic, it's not superstition. It's a sophisticated spiritual technology that creates optimal conditions for divine intervention. The icon itself is carefully designed to facilitate this connection. Every element has meaning. Every color carries significance. Every gesture points toward a specific aspect of Mary's role as intercessor. When you look at the icon with understanding, you're not just viewing a piece of art, you're engaging with a blueprint for supernatural communication. The two archangels depicted in the icon, Michael and Gabriel, represent the perfect balance of divine justice and divine mercy. Michael holds the instruments of Christ's passion, reminding us that our prayers are heard because of the sacrifice made on Calvary. Gabriel holds the cross itself, symbolizing the bridge between heaven and earth that makes all miracles possible. But the most powerful element is Mary's hands. Notice how she holds the Christ child, not possessively, but presentationally. She's literally offering Jesus to whoever looks upon the icon. This is the key to understanding why prayers to the Mother of Perpetual Help are so effective. You're not just asking Mary to pray for you, you're allowing her to present you directly to her Son. Here's something that will change how you think about prayer forever. Every authentic miracle follows a specific pattern, and when you understand this pattern, you can position yourself to receive the breakthrough you need. The pattern has 5 distinct phases, and I've seen it repeated hundreds of times in the testimonies of people who have experienced genuine interventions through devotion to the Mother of Perpetual Help. But here's the thing. Most people give up during phase 3, right before the breakthrough occurs. Phase 1 is what I call the stirring. This is when you first hear about the Mother of Perpetual Help, or when someone mentions her name in connection with your situation. You might dismiss it initially, thinking it's just coincidence, but something about it stays with you. There's a stirring in your heart that you can't quite explain. Maria Santos, whom I mentioned earlier, experienced this stirring when a neighbor casually mentioned that she had been praying a novena to our Mother of Perpetual Help. Maria wasn't particularly religious, but something about the way her neighbor said it made her pay attention. That stirring was the first phase of what would become a life-changing encounter with the supernatural. Phase 2 is the resistance. This is when your logical mind starts to fight against what your heart is telling you to do. You think, "This is silly. I don't believe in this kind of thing. What if it doesn't work?" The resistance can be so strong that many people turn back during this phase. But here's what you need to understand. The resistance isn't coming from your rational mind. It's coming from forces that don't want you to access the power that's available to you. The stronger the resistance, the more significant the breakthrough that's waiting for you on the other side. James Rodriguez experienced intense resistance during his second night at the novena. He told me later that he felt foolish, sitting in a church with people he didn't know, praying to an icon he didn't understand. Every fiber of his being wanted to leave. But some force stronger than his resistance, kept him in his seat. Phase 3 is the surrender. This is the most critical phase, and it's where most people fail. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means giving over. It means releasing your need to control the outcome and allowing heaven to work in ways that might be completely different from what you expected. True surrender is actually the most powerful prayer position you can take. When you surrender your situation to the Mother of Perpetual Help, you're not admitting defeat. You're acknowledging that there are resources available to you that go far beyond your human capacity to solve problems. Phase 4 is the silence. This is often the most difficult phase because it feels like nothing is happening. Your situation might look exactly the same. Your circumstances might even appear to get worse. But this silence is actually the phase where the most powerful work is being done, often in ways that are completely invisible to human perception. During the silence phase, heaven is rearranging circumstances, preparing hearts, opening doors, and creating opportunities that will later seem like incredible coincidences. The silence isn't emptiness, it's the sound of supernatural intervention working behind the scenes. Phase 5 is the manifestation. This is when the breakthrough becomes visible in the physical realm. But here's what most people don't realize. The manifestation rarely looks exactly like what you expected. Heaven's solutions are usually more creative, more comprehensive, and more perfect than anything you could have imagined. Let me tell you about Catherine Murphy from Dublin. Catherine had been trying to conceive a child for 7 years. She and her husband had tried every medical intervention available. They had spent their life savings on treatments that didn't work. They were considering adoption when Catherine's sister suggested a novena to the Mother of Perpetual Help. Catherine went through all 5 phases. The stirring came when her sister first mentioned it. The resistance was intense. She felt like she had already tried everything, including prayer. The surrender happened on the 4th night of the novena, when she finally released her need to control the timing and circumstances of having a child. The silence phase lasted for 3 months. Nothing seemed to change. But during those 3 months, Catherine and her husband decided to take a vacation to Italy, something they had never done before. They visited small villages, relaxed for the first time in years, and reconnected with each other in ways they had forgotten were possible. The manifestation came not as a pregnancy, but as a phone call from an adoption agency they had contacted years earlier. A young mother had specifically requested that her baby be placed with a Catholic family who had struggled with infertility. But here's the remarkable part. The baby was born on the exact day that Catherine had completed her novena to our Mother of Perpetual Help. Today, Catherine and her husband have 3 children, the adopted daughter, and 2 biological sons who were conceived naturally after the adoption. But Catherine will tell you that the real miracle wasn't just the children. It was the way heaven orchestrated a solution that was more beautiful and complete than anything she had originally asked for. This is how the Mother of Perpetual Help works. She doesn't just give you what you want, she gives you what you need in ways that reveal the infinite creativity and love of God. There's a story in the Gospel of Luke about a woman who kept coming to a judge, asking for justice. The judge didn't care about God or people, but the woman kept coming back, day after day, until finally the judge said, "I'm going to give this woman what she wants, because she won't stop asking." Jesus told this story to teach us about the power of persistent prayer, but here's what most people miss. Persistence in prayer isn't about wearing God down or changing His mind. It's about positioning yourself to receive what heaven wants to give you. The Mother of Perpetual Help specializes in persistent prayer. The word perpetual doesn't just mean that her help is continuous. It means that her intercession is relentless. She never stops advocating for you. She never gets tired of bringing your needs before the throne of God. She never gives up on your situation, no matter how impossible it seems. But here's the key. Your persistence must match her persistence. You can't pray for 3 days and then give up. You can't make one novena and then conclude that it doesn't work. True devotion to the Mother of Perpetual Help requires what the saints called holy stubbornness. Let me tell you about Roberto Silva from Brazil. Roberto was facing bankruptcy. His construction company had failed, his house was in foreclosure, and his marriage was falling apart under the financial pressure. A friend gave him a small card with the image of our Mother of Perpetual Help and told him to pray the novena every day until his situation changed. Roberto started the novena with skepticism, but also with desperation. He had tried everything else. For the first month, nothing changed. His creditors were still calling, the bank was still threatening foreclosure, and his wife was still talking about leaving. But Roberto kept praying. Every morning before work, every evening before bed, he would hold that little card and recite the prayers to our Mother of Perpetual Help. Some days he felt foolish, some days he felt angry, some days he felt like giving up entirely, but something kept him going. Later, he would describe it as feeling like someone was praying with him, even when he was alone. On the days when his faith was weakest, he could sense a presence that was strong enough to carry both his prayer and his doubt. After 3 months of daily novenas, Roberto received a phone call that changed everything. A man he had never met wanted to hire his company for a massive project. The man had heard about Roberto's reputation for quality work from a client Roberto had worked for years earlier, a project Roberto had completely forgotten about. The contract was large enough to save Roberto's business and his marriage. But the client had one unusual requirement. He wanted Roberto to build a small chapel on his property, dedicated to our Mother of Perpetual Help. Roberto later learned that the client had been praying his own novena to the Mother of Perpetual Help, asking for help in finding the right contractor for his project. 2 men, unknown to each other, had been praying to the same intercessor, and heaven had connected their needs in a way that blessed both of them. This is the power of persistent prayer through the Mother of Perpetual Help. Your faithful persistence creates a spiritual momentum that draws heaven's attention to your situation. But more than that, it creates opportunities for heaven to work through other people who are also praying, creating a network of supernatural intervention that goes far beyond your individual petition. The saints understood this principle. That's why they would pray the same prayer for years, sometimes decades, until they received what they were asking for. They weren't being stubborn or foolish. They were tapping into a spiritual law that governs how heaven responds to human need. Saint Monica prayed for her son Augustine's conversion for 17 years. 17 years of the same prayer, day after day, year after year. Most people would have given up after 17 weeks. But Monica understood that her persistent prayer was creating a spiritual pressure that would eventually break through every barrier that was keeping her son from God. And it worked. Augustine not only converted, he became one of the greatest saints in the history of the Church. But here's what I find remarkable. Monica's prayers didn't just change Augustine. They changed the entire trajectory of Christian theology. Augustine's writings have influenced millions of people for over 1,500 years. This is what happens when you persist in prayer through the Mother of Perpetual Help. Your breakthrough doesn't just affect you, it creates ripple effects that touch lives you may never know about. Your healing encourages someone else to believe. Your financial breakthrough inspires someone else to trust. Your restored relationship gives hope to someone else who is struggling. Heaven sees the bigger picture. That's why sometimes the answer to your prayer is delayed, not because God doesn't care, but because He's orchestrating a solution that will bless more people than just you. Before we continue, I want you to pause right here and do something. Leave a comment below this video telling me about one situation in your life that you've been praying about. Don't worry about privacy, just share what feels comfortable. But here's why this is important. When you write out your prayer request, you're making a commitment, not just to God, but to this community of believers who will be praying with you. The Mother of Perpetual Help works through community. She connects hearts across distances, creating a spiritual network of people who support each other through prayer. Your comment might be exactly what someone else needs to read today, and their prayers might be exactly what you need to receive your breakthrough. There's something about the Mother of Perpetual Help that most people never consider: her extraordinary mastery of timing. She doesn't just answer prayers, she answers them at the exact moment when they will have the maximum impact, not just in your life, but in the lives of everyone around you. Divine timing is one of the most misunderstood aspects of prayer. We want our answers now, immediately, according to our schedule. But heaven operates on a different timeline, a timeline that takes into account factors we can't see and connections we can't imagine. Let me tell you about Elena Petrov from Romania. Elena's son Alex had been addicted to drugs for 5 years. She had tried everything: rehab programs, interventions, therapy, counseling. Nothing worked. Alex would get clean for a few weeks, then relapse into even worse behavior than before. Elena started praying to the Mother of Perpetual Help in desperation. She made novena after novena, attended Mass daily, and carried Alex's photo everywhere she went, touching it to images of our Mother of Perpetual Help whenever she found them. For 2 years, nothing seemed to change. Alex's addiction got worse. He stole from the family, disappeared for weeks at a time, and eventually ended up homeless on the streets of Bucharest. Elena's friends told her to give up, to protect herself and her other children, but something inside her refused to stop praying. Then, on a cold Tuesday morning in November, Elena received a phone call that Alex had overdosed and was in the hospital. She rushed to his bedside, expecting the worst, but when she arrived, she found Alex conscious, coherent, and asking for her forgiveness. The doctor told Elena that Alex should have died from the amount of drugs in his system. There was no medical explanation for why he had survived. But Alex told his mother something that changed everything. While he was unconscious, he had seen a woman dressed in blue and gold who told him, "Your mother's prayers have reached heaven. It's time to come home." Alex had never heard of the Mother of Perpetual Help. Elena had never told him about her prayers, but his description of the woman he saw matched the icon perfectly, down to the specific colors and the way she held her hands. That was 3 years ago. Alex has been clean ever since. But here's the remarkable part about the timing. Alex's overdose happened on the same day that Elena's employer, a construction company, was bidding on a contract to build a new drug rehabilitation center. Elena's boss had been struggling with whether to take on the project because it would require a significant financial investment. When Elena told him about Alex's miraculous recovery, her boss decided to pursue the contract. The rehabilitation center was built, and Alex became one of its first counselors. Today, he helps other young people overcome addiction, using his own story as proof that no situation is hopeless. But the timing connections don't end there. The architect who designed the rehabilitation center was a woman named Maria Santos, the same Maria Santos whose daughter had been healed through prayer to the Mother of Perpetual Help. When Maria heard Alex's story, she insisted on including a small chapel in the building design dedicated to our Mother of Perpetual Help. Do you see the pattern? Heaven doesn't just answer individual prayers, it weaves them together into a tapestry of grace that creates multiple miracles from a single thread of faith. Elena's prayers for her son didn't just save Alex. They led to the construction of a facility that has helped hundreds of other families, designed by a woman whose own miracle had prepared her heart to contribute to this larger work of grace. This is why timing is so crucial in the supernatural realm. Your breakthrough might be delayed not because heaven is ignoring you, but because heaven is preparing a solution that will bless far more people than just you. Your miracle might be waiting for other people's prayers to align with yours, creating a spiritual convergence that makes the impossible inevitable. The Mother of Perpetual Help sees all of these connections. She knows exactly when your situation needs to intersect with someone else's prayer, someone else's gift, someone else's miracle. She orchestrates timing with the precision of a master conductor, bringing all the elements together at the perfect moment. This is why consistency in prayer is so important. Every day that you pray, you're not just asking for help, you're positioning yourself within heaven's timing. You're making yourself available for the moment when all the pieces come together. Think about it this way. If Elena had stopped praying during those 2 years when nothing seemed to be happening, Alex might never have experienced his vision. If she had given up when her friends told her to protect herself, the rehabilitation center might never have been built. If she had lost faith when Alex's addiction got worse, hundreds of other families might still be struggling without hope. Your persistent prayer creates a spiritual continuity that allows heaven to work across time. Today's prayer might be preparing tomorrow's miracle. This week's novena might be setting up next month's breakthrough. This year's faithful devotion might be creating the conditions for a transformation that will impact generations. Here's something that will completely change how you understand prayer. When you pray to the Mother of Perpetual Help, you're not praying alone. You're joining a network of believers that spans the globe, connecting your heart to millions of other hearts that are lifting the same petitions, trusting the same intercessor, and believing in the same power. This network isn't just metaphorical. It's a real, active, supernatural system that amplifies the power of individual prayer through the collective faith of the community. Quantum physicists call it non-local correlation, the ability of particles to affect each other across vast distances. Theologians call it the communion of saints, the spiritual unity that connects all believers across time and space. But here's what makes the network around the Mother of Perpetual Help unique. It's specifically designed to channel grace towards seemingly impossible situations. When you add your prayer to this network, you're not just asking for help, you're contributing to a spiritual force that has been breaking through barriers for over 500 years. Let me tell you about something that happened in the Philippines that demonstrates this principle in a remarkable way. Father Miguel Santos, no relation to Maria Santos from our earlier story, was serving in a small parish in Mindanao when he received a letter from a woman in Canada named Sarah Thompson. Sarah had heard about Father Miguel's devotion to the Mother of Perpetual Help and was asking for prayers for her son David, who had been missing for 6 months. David had been working as a humanitarian aid worker in Southeast Asia when he disappeared during a violent conflict. The Canadian government had declared him dead, but Sarah refused to give up hope. Father Miguel added David's name to the prayer intentions at his parish's weekly novena to our Mother of Perpetual Help. 50 Filipino parishioners, most of whom had never heard of Canada, began praying daily for a young man they had never met. Meanwhile, in Montreal, Sarah was attending her own novena at a local church, joined by 30 other members of her parish community. In Dublin, Catherine Murphy, whose story we heard earlier, had started a prayer group that met weekly to pray for the intentions of people around the world who were seeking the intercession of the Mother of Perpetual Help. 3 different countries, 3 different languages, 3 different time zones, but one unified prayer rising to heaven for David Thompson's safe return. On the 43rd day of this global prayer campaign, David was found alive in a remote village in Myanmar, where he had been recovering from injuries sustained during the conflict. The villagers who had been caring for him said he had been unconscious for weeks, repeatedly calling out the name Mary in English. But here's the extraordinary part. David was found by a search team that included a Filipino doctor who had grown up in Father Miguel's parish. The doctor recognized David's name because he had been receiving prayer updates from his family back home. The coincidental presence of this particular doctor in this particular place at this particular time was the direct result of a network of prayer that had been building momentum for over 6 weeks. When David was reunited with his mother, he told her about a recurring dream he had experienced while unconscious. In the dream, he saw a woman in blue and gold who was surrounded by people of many different races and nationalities, all of whom seemed to be praying for him. He could hear voices speaking in languages he didn't understand, but somehow knew they were praying for his safety. David had never heard of the Mother of Perpetual Help before his disappearance. Sarah had never told him about her global prayer campaign, but his dream perfectly described the network of believers who had been interceding for him across 3 continents. This is the power of joining your prayer to the network of grace that surrounds the Mother of Perpetual Help. Your individual petition becomes part of a collective force that transcends geographical boundaries, cultural differences, and language barriers. When heaven looks down at this network, it sees not just individual requests, but a unified cry for mercy that carries extraordinary spiritual weight. The network operates on the principle that I call reciprocal grace. When you pray for others through this network, others are simultaneously praying for you. When you add your faith to someone else's need, someone else's faith is being added to your need. It's a supernatural system of mutual support that multiplies the power of individual prayer exponentially. This is why the Mother of Perpetual Help is often called the Mother of the Impossible. It's not just because she can do impossible things. It's because she has access to an impossible network of believers whose combined faith creates conditions for miracles that would never occur through individual prayer alone. Before we continue with the final chapters of our time together, I want you to do something that will connect you to this network right here, right now. I want you to share this video with 3 people who you know are struggling with difficult situations. Don't just share it randomly. Think about the people in your life who need hope, who need to know that their impossible situation is actually an opportunity for heaven to demonstrate its power. When you share this video, you're not just passing along information. You're extending the network of grace to include people who might not otherwise know about this powerful intercession. You're becoming an active participant in heaven's system for reaching hearts that are ready to believe. And here's something beautiful. When you invite others into this network, you're not diluting the power available to you. You're increasing it. Every person who joins their prayer to yours creates more spiritual momentum for everyone's breakthrough. This is the miracle of multiplication that Jesus demonstrated with the loaves and fishes. There's always more than enough grace to go around. We've been building toward this moment throughout our entire time together. You've learned about the science of miracles, the pattern of intervention, the power of persistence, the miracle of timing, and the network of grace. But now it's time to experience the prayer that brings all of these elements together into a single focused petition that has the power to change everything. This isn't just any prayer. This is the prayer that Maria Santos prayed when her daughter was dying. It's the prayer that James Rodriguez prayed when his wife was diagnosed with cancer. It's the prayer that Elena Petrov prayed for her addicted son, and the prayer that Sarah Thompson prayed for her missing child. But before we pray together, I need you to understand something crucial. This prayer works not because of the specific words, but because of the specific heart condition that the words create. You're not reciting a magic formula. You're entering into a state of spiritual receptivity that allows heaven to work in your situation. The prayer has 3 movements, like a symphony. The first movement is recognition, acknowledging who Mary is and why she has the authority to help you. The second movement is presentation, bringing your specific need before her with complete honesty and vulnerability. The third movement is surrender, releasing your need to control the outcome and trusting heaven to work in ways that may be completely different from what you expect. Each movement is crucial. Skip any one of them, and the prayer loses its power. Rush through any of them, and you miss the spiritual positioning that makes miracles possible. Let me tell you about one more person before we begin. His name is Thomas Chen, and he lives in Singapore. Thomas was a successful engineer who had lost his faith after his first wife died in a car accident. He became bitter, angry, and convinced that if God existed, he certainly didn't care about human suffering. For 15 years, Thomas lived with this bitterness. He remarried, had children, achieved professional success, but carried a deep wound in his heart that nothing could heal. His second wife, Linda, was a Catholic who had been quietly praying for Thomas's healing for their entire marriage. When Thomas was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, the same disease that had killed his father, Linda finally convinced him to attend a novena to the Mother of Perpetual Help. Thomas agreed, not because he believed, but because he was facing death and was willing to try anything. On the first night of the novena, Thomas sat in the back of the church, arms crossed, heart closed. He listened to the prayers but didn't participate. He looked at the icon but felt nothing. He was there physically, but nowhere else. But on the third night, something shifted. The priest leading the novena spoke about the Mother of Perpetual Help as the one who stands with us in our darkest moments, not to take away our suffering, but to transform it into something redemptive. For the first time since his first wife's death, Thomas felt something crack open in his chest. By the seventh night, Thomas was crying, not from sadness, but from a relief he couldn't explain. The anger that had been eating him alive for 15 years was dissolving, replaced by something he had forgotten existed: hope. Thomas's cancer was caught early, and the surgery was successful. But he will tell you that the real healing wasn't physical, it was spiritual. The prayer to the Mother of Perpetual Help didn't just save his life, it restored his faith, healed his marriage, and gave him a peace that he had never experienced before. Thomas now leads his own novena group in Singapore, and he always tells new participants the same thing. Come as you are, bring your doubt, bring your anger, bring your fear. The Mother of Perpetual Help can work with any heart that's willing to be opened. This is the kind of transformation that's possible when you pray with complete honesty and vulnerability. The Mother of Perpetual Help doesn't need you to have perfect faith. She needs you to have an open heart. She doesn't need you to understand everything. She needs you to trust enough to begin. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to lead you through the 3-movement prayer, and I want you to participate fully. Don't worry about whether you're doing it right. Don't worry about whether you believe enough. Just follow along with sincere intention and let the Mother of Perpetual Help do the rest. First, make sure you're in a quiet place where you won't be interrupted. Turn off your phone if possible. This is a sacred conversation, and it deserves your full attention. If you have an image of the Mother of Perpetual Help, look at it. If you don't, that's fine. She can hear you regardless. Place your hand on your heart and feel it beating. This is the life that God has given you, the life that heaven wants to bless, the life that the Mother of Perpetual Help wants to help flourish. Your heartbeat is a prayer in itself, a rhythm of hope that connects you to the source of all life. Mother of Perpetual Help, I come before you acknowledging who you are, the chosen vessel of the Most High, the woman who said yes to the impossible, the mother who stood at the foot of the cross and experienced the deepest suffering a human heart can know. You understand pain because you have felt it. You understand loss because you have experienced it. You understand hope because you have lived it. I recognize your authority to intercede for me, not because you are divine, but because you are the perfect human being who lived in complete harmony with God's will. Your prayers carry special weight in heaven because your heart is perfectly aligned with the heart of your Son, Jesus Christ. I acknowledge that you are the mother of perpetual help, which means your assistance never ends, never fails, and never abandons those who call upon you with sincere hearts. You helped at the wedding in Cana when the wine ran out. You help now when our resources run out, when our strength runs out, when our hope runs out. I bring before you today my specific need. Pause here and speak your need aloud, whether it's healing, provision, relationship restoration, guidance, or whatever burden you're carrying. I don't bring this need to you because I think you're magic, but because I believe you have access to resources that I don't have, connections that I can't make, and influence that I can't exercise. I present this situation to you exactly as it is, without trying to make it sound better or worse than it really is,